There was another one, Dave, I think I sent to you this morning where somebody on social media suggested that Brandon Thurston had recently pointed out that Dave Meltzer owned secretly 3% equity in AEW. Dave, do you have that clip or am I imagining things? Here it is. Now, I don't know Jim Anderson. He may just be some goof that's looking for credibility and attention, just like Dave. But and I'm not saying I believe this. In fact, I find it really hard to believe, and I responded accordingly. But I'm going to read it in case you're busy driving or working and you can't take the time to take a look at this. It says, "It was revealed to me this morning from a very reliable source in AEW that Dave Meltzer secretly," now this is in quotes, "that secretly owns a 3% stake in the company. An email was accidentally sent to Dave by a third party, hence revealing this information," unquote. And then it has Brandon Thurston WrestleNomics as the attributing source. Again, I don't believe any of the garbage that I read in social media. I don't believe any of the garbage that I see in mainstream news, let alone the cesspool that exists in social media, and particularly the depths of the cesspool with regard to professional wrestling. So it begs the question, though, because Dave, given his coverage and the fact that he positions himself as a journalist over and over, he'll tell you about all the awards he's won, that he speaks at colleges. He'll try so hard to defend his credibility as a journalist, yet he says a lot of things that suggest that he's really just a cheerleader. So the fact that, and this is not just me, this is so many people that read his garbage on social media that are calling him out on this stuff. It forces me to ask the question, is it true? Dave, do you confirm or deny it? It's a simple yes or no. Doesn't need an explanation. Now, for the record, Brandon Thurston has come out and said he never said anything of the sort. And I have no reason to not believe Brandon Thurston. In fact, I enjoy his coverage. I find the information that he publishes. I don't listen to his YouTube show or his Patreon, or I don't listen to any of his audio stuff, but I do watch very closely his reporting on data and performance, because when I see it, I don't feel, hear, sense any emotion. I don't feel like he's advocating too much. He's just providing the information and letting the viewer come to their own conclusions. And I really appreciate that kind of coverage very much. But I don't know Brandon personally. Maybe there's a reason why Brandon would come out right away and deny ever saying that. Perhaps, and I know this is a stretch, people, and I don't even want to believe it myself. In fact, I'm not sure I do, but we're talking about not what's true and what's not true, but what may be true, what is possible. When you look at the way Dave covers AEW and is like over the top support and making excuses for them, and from day one, it begs the question, is there a chance there's more to the relationship between Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer than meets the eye? And then, even if it's some goof that just trying to connect dots that don't exist, to throw out a number like 3%, it's a very small amount. It's more of a token gesture than it is anything else. It's like, oh, well, it sounds like stupid and it sounds like garbage social media shit, but maybe that explains the way Dave covers AEW. So it begs the question, could it be true? Now, like I said, I want to be very fucking clear. I don't believe it myself, but I do believe perhaps there's a remote possibility it's true, based primarily on the way Dave treats and covers AEW. Now, why would Brandon Thurston come out and deny it if he ever said it? Because if you receive information, proprietary confidential information, in an email or otherwise, that was not intended for you, and you disclose that information, you are civilly and potentially criminally liable. Meaning you get your ass sued off, or maybe be looking at criminal penalties. Now, usually when it comes to the criminal part, it's like if you're revealing medical information with regard to the HIPAA Act, it's a federal law that provides, absolute confidentiality when it comes to people's medical records and conditions and things like that. But it also includes trade secrets. Now, I know what I would do if I got an email that wasn't intended for me, but I saw something that made me go, holy shit, and I told somebody else, and then I found out, hey, man, you may be liable. I'd be denying that bitch all day long. That's not what I said. You misunderstood me. Now, I'm not saying that happened. I'm not saying I'm 100% convinced it didn't happen, but I'm mostly convinced it didn't happen. But it does beg the question, which leads me into the last part of this show. Dave, I think you should, not what I want, because you don't know me, fuck, you hate my guts as much as I hate yours, so that's not an issue. But I think you owe, because you positioned yourself as a journalist, you charge people $15 a month or whatever it is, based on your credibility as a journalist and the veracity of your reporting, your experience. You charge people money for that. So I think it would be fair of you to, number one, either confirm or deny that you own 3%. However ridiculous that story may sound, I think you owe it to the audience to confirm it or deny it so that it just goes away. Otherwise, there's going to be an open question every time you report something that sounds as bizarre as 90% of the stuff that you cover for AEW. The other thing, though, that I want to dig into much more substantively is Dave camping out so hard on the fact that this deal is going to make AEW profitable. In fact, he's camped out so hard in that clip that we saw earlier. Dave is asking for the other podcasters to prove that they too knew that this company was going to be profitable. How would Dave know that this deal is going to make AEW profitable? The only way Dave Meltzer would know that as a fact, as a journalist who's reporting a fact, not a speculation, it's been reported, it's been suggested, perhaps, hopefully, any other way that you could possibly phrase this to make it sound like an idea as opposed to a fact. But Dave is a journalist and he's stating a fact over and over and over again. So it begs the question, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm begging for questions. It begs the question, how do you know that, Dave? Do you have access to the complete financials? Because the only way you could possibly make a statement like that with any credibility at all is if you were looking at a P&L. For most of you, that's a profit and loss statement that shows all your expenses against all your revenues in order to make a claim like that. Either Dave has access to those financials, and as a journalist, he won't share it because he's actually an agent of AEW in the literal sense. He's working for, he's a surrogate. He has information, he's not sharing it. Or he's making shit up. So let's assume, I'm going to give Dave the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume, because he is so adamant that this deal is going to make AEW profitable, let's ask a few questions about this deal that I believe Dave has visibility in. Whether he is a 3% minority owner or whether he's just buddies with Tony Khan, there's a reason why Dave keeps telling us this is going to make them profitable. In fact, he's even giving numbers. I think I saw something shortly ago as I was prepping to do this that Dave is suggesting. I think I could be wrong on this. I might be attributing it to Dave and it was from someone else, but I think it was from Dave, that in 2025, AEW is going to make $65 million in that range. The only way you'd be able to make a statement like that, even if you're a clown like Dave Meltzer, is if you have something in front of you that details how that's going to happen. So if Dave has access to that information and he's a journalist and he's charging people $15 a month, maybe, just a thought, tell us how you know that, Dave. You don't have to share specific details down to the dollars and cents, but tell us how you know the fact that you're reporting, as opposed to just saying it. The other thing I'd like Dave to know, and here's a question I have, Dave. I'm assuming that you have visibility into all this. You reported the deal, 170, 150, 185, whatever the fuck, the number's moving all over the place. There might be a reason for that too. Which leads me to my question. How much of that deal, let's just say it's 185. That's what it was last time I saw it. How much of that is cash? I've seen deals that have a total value of, let's say, $10, but only 5 of it is cash. The rest of it is goods and services. And I'm using $10 as an example because, well, not for our 83 weeks, viewers, listeners, members, because you are a rare breed of people who are enlightened, which is why you're here. I'm talking about some of our guests who are here to defend Dave because they're out there. I'd like to, just a question. I'm not making a statement. I'm confused. I'm curious. I'm intellectually curious. And it's always been a challenge for me because when people say things definitively, I want to know why or how. So I'd like to know, Dave, as a journalist, you should be asking these questions. And so should other quote unquote journalists who show up at the media scrums and want to get a cookie and a pat on the head and a little bit of acknowledgement. I get it. It's fun. But somebody should be asking questions like, of this 185 million deal, how much of it is cash? How much of it is, how do I refer to it as? Let's call it soft money. Meaning value, but not cash. Now you would ask me, Eric, what do you mean by soft dollars? I mean like promotion. Warner Brothers Discovery has a tremendous inventory of commercial time. A lot of it goes unsold. And it's not just Warner Brothers Discovery. Every television network has it. They use that typically for what they call make goods, meaning if you sold $1 million worth of advertising to a client and you guaranteed them a certain amount of viewers, a cost per thousand per se, but based on the ratings of the show, perhaps you under-delivered, well, then you give them additional commercials inside your commercial time for free, right? To make up for the loss. That commercial inventory, and every network has it, especially in today's environment. There's a lot of it out there. And a good portion of it is actually set aside for make goods every year because they know they're going to have to use it. But that commercial time, even though it is unsold, unused inventory, has a value. It's called a rate card. And it's a question, not a statement. I have no visibility into anything. I'm just, because of the way Dave has handled this, and this has got nothing to do with Tony. I wish Tony nothing but the best. I got no dog in his hunt. Don't give a shit. Nothing Tony does is ever going to affect my life one way or the other. But I do like to challenge people who say stupid shit. And I think for Dave to come out and make these statements as fact while he's positioning himself as a journalist and charging people $15 a month for his information based on his credibility, I think that's fraudulent. When in fact he has no visibility and doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Or if he does, then I think he owes it to those people who he's been milking for the last 30 years to explain to us how he knows these things. And I think Dave should ask the question of Tony Khan, of that $185 million or whatever the number is. Yay, they got a deal done. I'm happy for him. I really am. I'm having fun with it, but I am. Of that, how much of it, if any, because maybe it's not, maybe it's all cash. or maybe it's not. Is it 50 million in cash and other valuable considerations, other considerations of equal value? Is it or not? I'm just curious. I'm just somebody that was in the television business for a minute and really interested in how wrestling deals come together, particularly when you look at Dynamite and its poor performance and the fact that it's hemorrhaging and has been hemorrhaging audience for the last year and a half. Why AEW would value Dynamite and Collision and Rampage on the same level based on the $185 million deal. They're putting it really, they're looking at it in terms of parity, the same way they would look at WWE. I don't get that. Dynamite has probably 30% of the audience of Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, whatever the percentage is. It's a small fraction, relatively speaking. Why would AEW pay a premium price for such a poor performing property? Perhaps they didn't. Perhaps that $185 million deal looks really exciting in a headline, but in fact isn't $185 million. Or maybe it is. I'd like to know. How about you all? Shouldn't somebody ask the question? I think it'd be fun. So Dave, you got all the participation trophies. Try for 30 years to convince people you're a journalist. You tell people at every opportunity that you're a student, that you study this business, and you have an insatiable desire to learn. How about it? You're going to be a journalist and ask those questions? Are you going to confirm or deny that ridiculous report that I even have a hard time believing? Because there's so much garbage on social media, including yours, Dave. People are just following your lead. You've set the pace, so to speak. There's so much garbage out there. I think you owe it to your subscribers, those who pay $15 a month for your bullshit, to confirm or deny it. And I think you also owe your audience, because you're a journalist who charges people for your insight, to tell us how you know that AEW is going to be profitable in 2025. Because we're all curious, Dave. And you're the man that can answer the questions.